You've driven past them hundreds of times, massive stone giants crossing highways, rivers, valleys. You glance up for a second, then forget. Just old bridges, right? Relics of the railway age. But stop for a moment, really look at them. Why does a 6-lane viaduct cross a stream you can step over? Why does a 300-meter stone colossus with 30-meter arches span an empty field where no rails have run for a century or maybe never ran at all? We've been told a story, a comfortable story, that in the 1840s to 1850s, during the railway boom, visionary capitalists built massive infrastructure for future expansion. That illiterate peasants with iron chisels and wooden hammers carved perfect granite blocks, laid millions of bricks, and erected engineering marvels that still stand today. Sounds inspiring until you start counting. Take the Göltzsch Viaduct in Germany. Official story. Built between 1846 and 1851. 5 years. The structure contains 26 million bricks. Let's turn on the calculator. 26 million bricks divided by 1,826 days equals 14,240 bricks per day. Every single day. No winters, no holidays, no Sundays. That's 593 bricks per hour. 24 hours straight for 5 years. 10 bricks per minute, every minute for half a decade. Do you seriously believe this? But wait, it gets better. These aren't Lego blocks. Each brick requires mortar mixing, precise placement, curing time of at least 24 hours, arch geometry calculations. A skilled mason team can realistically lay 200 to 300 bricks per day maximum. That means you'd need 50 teams working simultaneously on a single structure. Where did 50 teams live? Where are the worker barracks, the latrines, the hospitals, the graveyards? Archaeological surveys around these viaducts reveal nothing. No camps, no tools, no graves, no trash heaps from thousands of workers living for years. It's like the bridge materialized from thin air, and here's the question that shatters everything. Why would profit-obsessed 19th century capitalists freeze the modern equivalent of $200 million in stone to build a road for populations that didn't exist? Stop. Ask yourself one question. Who builds a 12-lane highway to connect two farmhouses? Unless they didn't build it at all, unless these structures were already here, already ancient, and someone just laid rails on top and claimed credit, but the economics are just the tip of the iceberg. Wait until you see the construction timeline. Wait until you calculate how much it would cost just to transport the materials. And then you'll see the photographs from 1860 showing these bridges already weathered, already ancient, already buried to their knees in earth that rose from nowhere. We've been lied to about what these structures actually are. And it's time to count. Let's shift our gaze from construction impossibility to something even more damning: the money. Take the Landwasser Viaduct in Switzerland, built officially between 1901 and 1902. 136 meters long, 65 meters high, curved like a ribbon through alpine wilderness. The official story? A private railway company invested the modern equivalent of over $200 million. For what? To connect 3 villages with a combined population of 2,000 people to serve a route where trains would run twice daily, maybe, to create infrastructure that wouldn't break even for 150 years minimum. The most interesting part is just beginning. Write in the comments what city you're from, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching us from where? Drop a like and subscribe to the channel. There's more to come. Mark yourselves in the comments. Which country are you from? Hit that like button and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography. Right where you are right now. Smash that thumbs up and subscribe. We're just warming up. Tell us, where are you watching from? Support the video with a like and hit that subscribe button. The climax is near. Share what corner of the world you're in right now. Drop a like and make sure to subscribe. Things are developing rapidly. Write your city in the chat, slam that like and hit subscribe so you don't get lost. All the juiciest stuff is ahead. Let's get acquainted. Who's from where? Hit like and subscribe right now. The intrigue is building right where you're watching this episode from, and reward us with a like and subscription. Emotions are off the charts. Quickly write what city you're from. Drop a fat like and subscribe to the channel. Let's turn on the calculator and think like a 19th century banker. Construction costs, materials, labor, engineering, transport through mountain terrain. Conservatively, $200 million in today's money. Revenue projections, ticket prices multiplied by passenger volume multiplied by frequency. Even with generous estimates, 20 passengers per train, 2 trains daily, average ticket $10, you're looking at annual revenue of $146,000. Return on investment timeline, 1,370 years. Do you invest your life savings building a Formula One racetrack in a village of 500 people? Do you construct a 12-lane freeway to connect 2 farmhouses? This isn't business, this is financial insanity, but we're told that hard-nosed capitalists, men who counted every penny, who fired workers to save wages, who squeezed profit from every venture, suddenly decided to burn fortunes building infrastructure for populations that didn't exist. Really? Any board of directors would laugh you out of the room. Any investor would call you insane. Any banker would refuse the loan. Yet hundreds of these structures exist across Europe, across America, across Russia, all built in the same narrow window of 1840 to 1910, all serving tiny populations, all economically absurd. It's like finding a modern international airport terminal in the Amazon rainforest and claiming a local tribe of 50 people built it last year for future tourism expansion. The object exists, the investment is real, but the economic logic is non-existent. Either 19th century capitalists were idiots who loved burning money in stone monuments to their own stupidity, or these structures were already here, already built by someone else, and the railway companies simply laid tracks on existing foundations and claimed credit. There is no third option. The math doesn't lie. The economics don't work. The official story collapses under the weight of a simple calculator. This is not a mistake in the historical record. This is evidence that we've been told a fairy tale about who built these structures and when. But if the economics destroy the official version, wait until you see what happens when we examine the construction timeline itself. Wait until you calculate how many workers would be needed, where they lived, and why there's zero archaeological trace of their existence. The numbers are about to get even more impossible. Here's the question nobody asks. If tens of thousands of workers built these structures over 5-year periods, where did they all go? Not metaphorically, literally. Where are they? Look at the Starrucca Viaduct in Pennsylvania, built officially in 1847 to 1848. 110 meters long, 30 meters high, 17 massive stone arches. The Erie Railroad claimed 900 workers built it in just 16 months. 900 workers, 16 months. In rural Pennsylvania wilderness in 1847, let's count what 900 workers actually require. 900 men need shelter. Minimum 300 basic barrack structures. They need food. Roughly 2 tons of supplies daily, transported by horse cart on dirt roads through dense forest. They need clean water, waste disposal, medical care. Statistically, at 19th century construction accident rates, 40 to 60 workers would suffer serious injuries. 8 to 12 would not survive. Where are the graves? Archaeological surveys around Starrucca have been conducted multiple times. The findings: 0 worker camps, 0 tool caches, 0 food waste deposits, 0 burial sites, nothing. Complete silence. It's like 900 men materialized from thin air, built 17 perfect stone arches in 16 months, then evaporated without leaving a single boot print. Now add the material problem. Starrucca used local bluestone, roughly 27,000 tons of it, quarried, cut, transported, and placed in 16 months. 27,000 tons divided by 480 working days equals 56 tons of stone moved every single day. By horse carts, on unpaved forest roads. A loaded horse cart carries half a ton maximum on rough terrain. That means 112 fully loaded cart trips daily just for stone delivery before a single block gets cut, shaped, or lifted into place. Where are the roads that handled this traffic? Where are the quarry scars? Where are the horse records, the feed purchases, the cart repair invoices? Historians usually roll their eyes at these questions, but they have no answer. We're told that illiterate laborers with hand tools executed a logistical operation of military complexity and left absolutely no trace of their existence. Seriously? Either a workforce of 900 men lived, worked, suffered, and some perished here for 16 months and somehow generated zero archaeological evidence, or these structures were already standing when the Erie Railroad arrived. There is no third option. This is not a gap in the historical record. Gaps happen. This is a void, a deliberate, total, impossible void, and the void gets deeper. Because when we examine not the workers but the tools they supposedly used, the physical evidence carved into the stone itself, the official story doesn't just crack, it shatters completely. Shift your gaze from the missing workers to the stone itself, because what's carved into these blocks tells a story that no historian wants to explain. Look at the Tunkhannock Creek Viaduct in Pennsylvania, completed officially in 1915. 11 arches, 73 meters high, the largest concrete viaduct in the world at the time, or so they claim. But examine the older stone viaducts nearby, the ones from the 1840s and 1850s. Run your hand across the granite joints. You cannot insert a razor blade between them. Tolerance, under 0.5 millimeter. Now let's talk about what that actually means. Granite registers 6 to 7 on the Mohs hardness scale. Iron, the metal available in 1850, registers 4 to 5. You cannot cut a harder material with a softer tool. This is not opinion. This is physics. An iron chisel striking granite dulls after 8 to 10 blows. Each block requires hundreds of precise strikes to shape. Each viaduct contains thousands of blocks. Let's count the chisels consumed. 10,000 blocks, 300 strikes each, 1 chisel per 10 strikes. That's 300,000 iron chisels per structure. 300,000. That's more chisels than the entire regional blacksmith industry could produce in a decade. Where are the forges? Where are the coal mountains needed to fire them? Where are the chisel disposal sites? Zero. None. Silence. But here's what makes the hair on your arms stand up. Look at the stone surfaces under any magnification. What you see are perfectly parallel, smooth cuts, uniform depth, consistent spacing, clean edges. These are the signatures of high-speed rotary cutting tools. Diamond blade rotary stone saws were officially invented in the 1930s. These cuts exist in structures from the 1840s. Do you feel this dissonance? We're told that peasants with hand chisels, tools physically incapable of cutting the material, produced surfaces that our modern diamond equipment struggles to replicate. Seriously? It's like finding laser-etched microchips inside a medieval manuscript. The precision exists, the technology to create it officially doesn't. Either these viaducts were cut with tools that didn't exist in the 19th century, or they were cut long before the 19th century by a civilization that possessed them. There is no third option. This is not a craftsmanship mystery. This is evidence of technology we've been told was impossible at the time of construction. And remember this detail, the rotary cut signatures in stone that predates the rotary saw. We'll return to it later, when the full picture snaps into focus and you understand exactly what kind of civilization left these marks. Because we haven't even reached the strangest anomaly yet, the bridges aren't just built impossibly, they're buried, not metaphorically, physically buried. Open Google Maps right now, find any of these viaducts. Göltzsch, Starrucca, Landwasser. Switch to Street View and look at the base of the pillars. Notice something odd about the proportions? The arches look compressed, squat, like something is missing at the bottom. Something is. Several meters of it. In 2008, restoration crews working on a viaduct outside Plauen, Germany required deep foundation inspection, standard procedure. They excavated around the base pillars expecting bedrock within a meter or two. They found more bridge, full decorative arches, complete architectural detailing, ornamental stonework, all underground, buried under 3 meters of compacted earth. Intact, untouched, perfectly preserved. Who designs ornate decorative arches specifically to bury them? No engineer on Earth. Buried stonework collects water, freezes, expands, cracks. Burying decorative elements is structural self-destruction. These arches were designed to stand in open air, to be seen, to function. And here's where it gets impossible to explain away. This isn't one site. Open any geological survey of historic viaducts across Europe and North America. The pattern repeats everywhere. Buried lower sections, compressed above ground proportions, ground level sitting 2 to 4 meters higher than original design intended, 2 to 4 meters of soil, deposited over the entire landscape simultaneously. Let's calculate what that means. The Göltzsch Viaduct sits in a valley roughly 2 kilometers wide. 3 meters of soil depth across that valley represents approximately 12 million cubic meters of deposited material. That's enough to fill 5,000 Olympic swimming pools. Where did it come from? Wind erosion. Normal geological processes take thousands of years to deposit 3 meters. We're talking about structures supposedly built in the 1840s. Do you seriously believe normal erosion buried these structures in decades? The answer is obvious. It didn't. Something deposited massive quantities of material across entire landscapes in a catastrophically short time frame. A mud event, a flood of biblical scale. Something that buried the lower floors of buildings, the ground-level arches of viaducts, the first stories of entire cities, and then stopped, leaving everything above the new ground level perfectly intact. It's like someone pressed pause on a global drowning event halfway through. We see buried arches in Germany. We see buried first floors in Russia. We see windows opening into solid earth across 3 continents. This is not local subsidence. This is a global event they've never explained. And now ask yourself the question that changes everything. If these valleys were buried under meters of clay, what was in them before? What did these viaducts originally span? Not the tiny streams trickling beneath them today. Something far larger, something that no longer exists, and that answer leads us directly to what these structures were actually built for. Stop calling them bridges right now. That word is the cage that prevents us from seeing what's actually standing in those fields. A bridge connects 2 points for transportation. These structures connect empty fields. They span streams you can jump across. They lead nowhere. Transportation was never their purpose. So what was? Look at the Göltzsch Viaduct's material composition with fresh eyes, not as a historian, as a physicist. Red brick at the primary material contains iron oxide in concentrations of 8 to 12%. When fired above 1,000 degrees Celsius, iron oxide transforms the ceramic matrix into a semiconductor. Not an insulator, not a conductor, a semiconductor. The same fundamental material category as silicon in your smartphone. Now the granite foundations. Granite contains 20 to 30% quartz crystal by composition. Quartz is piezoelectric. Apply mechanical pressure. It generates electrical voltage. This is not fringe theory. This is the operating principle behind every microphone, every ultrasound machine, every gas igniter in your kitchen. These viaducts weigh hundreds of thousands of tons. That weight creates constant, unrelenting gravitational compression on quartz-rich granite foundations every second of every day. For centuries, each viaduct is a continuous voltage generator. No fuel, no maintenance, no off switch. Do you feel the ground shifting beneath your assumptions right now? But the scariest part isn't even this. Look at where they're built. Every single one crosses water. Not roads, not dry valleys, moving water specifically. Flowing water generates electromagnetic fields through ion displacement. Measurable, documented, undeniable physics. The arched stone structure above focuses and amplifies these fields, concentrating electromagnetic energy the way a lens concentrates light. Now look at the iron clamps joining the stone blocks. Historians explain these as structural reinforcement. Any structural engineer will tell you the opposite. Iron rusts, expands, and splits stone from within. It's one of the most destructive elements you can embed in masonry. 19th century builders knew this. They'd watched Roman structures survive 2,000 years without iron clamps. So why use them? unless the clamps weren't structural, unless they were electrical conductors wiring the semiconductor brick and piezoelectric granite into a unified circuit, unless each viaduct was a single coherent electrical device, generator, conductor, and amplifier combined in one massive stone structure. It's like finding copper wiring running through the walls of a building and calling it decorative metalwork. The function is obvious once you stop accepting the official label. Either these material choices were catastrophic engineering errors made identically across hundreds of structures on multiple continents, or every choice was deliberate, precise, and functional. There is no third option. This is not architecture. This is technology. And we'll return to the iron clamps when the full circuit becomes visible, because what they connect to will make this entire picture snap into terrifying focus. Now zoom out, all the way out. We've been examining individual structures, one viaduct, one valley, one impossible calculation. But the moment you step back and look at the map, the individual pieces stop being anomalies and become something terrifying. They become a system. Take any detailed map of Europe. Plot every useless viaduct through Wowskiner, the ones crossing empty fields, the ones leading nowhere, the ones with no economic justification. Now overlay the locations of star forts, those perfectly geometric fortifications that official history calls military defenses. The lines between them are straight, precisely straight, spaced at intervals of 30 to 50 kilometers with a regularity that defies coincidence. 30 to 50 kilometers. Remember that number. Now open any physics textbook to the chapter on electromagnetic wave propagation. The optimal spacing for a ground-level resonance transmission network, nodes capable of receiving, amplifying, and retransmitting electromagnetic energy, is exactly 30 to 50 kilometers depending on frequency. Exactly. Do you seriously believe this is coincidence? We're told star forts were military installations, but any military historian will tell you their walls are catastrophically inadequate, 3 to 5 meters high, easily cleared by any cannon of the period. Their geometry makes no tactical sense for defense. Their geometry makes perfect sense for something else entirely. The pointed star shape maximizes perimeter length relative to enclosed area, ideal for earthwork capacitors storing electromagnetic charge. The geometric moats channel and direct water flow to generate consistent electromagnetic fields. The precise angular walls create resonance chambers for specific frequencies. Star forts aren't fortresses, they're capacitors. And the domed structures, the cathedrals, the capitol buildings, the observatories, all positioned within this same grid. A copper-clad dome is a textbook inductor coil. Every physics student knows this, but we've been calling them architectural beauty for 2 centuries. They're inductors. The viaducts are transmission lines. The star forts are capacitors. Together, a complete planetary-scale wireless power distribution network. It's like finding a circuit board the size of a continent and calling the components historical monuments. We've been living on a planetary motherboard, mistaking the infrastructure of gods for the decorations of peasants. And this network wasn't regional. Plot the same structures across America, across Russia, across Asia. Same spacing, same geometry, same material composition, same orientation to water sources. One civilization, one technology, one planet-wide system. Either dozens of separate cultures with zero contact, independently invented identical, economically irrational, geometrically precise infrastructure for no reason, or one global civilization built a unified energy grid and we inherited the ruins without understanding what we're standing on. There is no third option. This is not a collection of historical curiosities. This is evidence of a planetary engineering project of a scale we cannot currently reproduce. And if someone built it, someone also switched it off. Someone switched it off, and we can see exactly how. Look closely at viaducts across France, Germany, and the American Northeast. Not at the standing sections, at the gaps. Dozens of these structures have their central spans missing, precisely surgically removed, not collapsed from age, not eroded by weather, not damaged by structural failure. Cut out, like someone snipped the middle of a wire. the Chaumont Viaduct in France, the Pecos River High Bridge in Texas, structures across the Rhineland, all share the identical damage pattern: end sections intact, central span gone, removal so clean it required deliberate precision. Official explanation: wartime bombing, structural failure, _quote_9_. But here's what destroys that explanation completely. Wartime bombing is indiscriminate. It damages end sections, destabilizes foundations, leaves blast scarring. What we see instead is targeted central removal with surrounding structure untouched. And the structural failure explanation collapses instantly when you notice that the supposedly weaker end sections, carrying the same load, built with the same materials, stand perfectly after centuries. How does the strongest central section fail while the weaker ends survive? It doesn't, unless the central section was deliberately removed by someone who knew exactly what they were doing, someone who understood the circuit. In any electrical transmission line, removing the central conductor breaks the entire circuit. Current cannot flow. The nodes on either end become isolated, powerless, inert. You don't need to destroy the whole system. You just cut the connections between nodes. That's not a military strategy. That's an engineer's sabotage. Now look at the timeline of these removals. The majority of central span, quote 11 and quote 12 cluster in a specific window, 1860 to 1890. The same decades when coal and oil industries consolidated their global monopolies. The same decades when the first electrical utility companies that charged per unit of power consumed, established their infrastructure. Coincidence? Across dozens of countries simultaneously? The answer is obvious. It's like finding that every free water source in a city was capped and sealed in the same year that a private water company launched. You wouldn't call that coincidence, you'd call it a business strategy. Either the central spans of hundreds of viaducts across multiple continents spontaneously failed in the same historical window through pure geological bad luck, or someone systematically deactivated the planetary energy grid to force humanity onto a pay-per-use power system. There is no third option. This is not infrastructure decay. This is evidence of the most profitable act of sabotage in human history, and the sabotage didn't stop with cutting the wires. The next phase was far more thorough, erasing the memory of what the system was, replacing it with a story so simple and so comfortable that we'd never think to question it. We'll return to that erasure, because it continues to this day, the erasure they promised us. Let's look at it directly. Chicago, 1871. The entire city center burns to the ground in 48 hours. Every major civic building, every ornate structure, every architectural landmark, gone. Official story: a cow kicked over a lantern. A cow kicked over a lantern and somehow incinerated 18,000 buildings across 9 square kilometers of stone and brick construction. Do you seriously believe this? Boston, 1872. Seattle, 1889. San Francisco, 1906. Portland, 1873. Virginia City, 1875. Look at the pattern. Every major American city with significant pre-existing architecture experiences a catastrophic total fire within a 30-year window. Always the city center, always the oldest, most ornate structures, always complete destruction of everything built before 1850, always replaced immediately with simpler, cheaper, architecturally inferior buildings. Let's calculate the probability. The chance of any given city experiencing a civilization-erasing fire in a given decade is roughly 1 in 500. The chance of 12 major cities experiencing this simultaneously across one 30-year window, 1 in 500 to the 12th power, a number so astronomically small it effectively equals 0. This wasn't accident. This was a program. Now look at what specifically burned. Not the warehouses, not the factories, not the rail yards, the grand civic buildings, the ones with copper roofing, the ones with domed structures, the ones with specific geometric proportions matching the energy grid architecture we've been mapping. The components burned. The infrastructure survived. It's like a city where every power substation burns down simultaneously while every road and parking lot remains untouched. You wouldn't call that a fire, you call it targeted demolition. And what replaced these structures? Flat-roofed brick boxes, plain concrete rectangles, architecturally sterile buildings with no copper elements, no geometric precision, no resonance properties whatsoever, buildings that generate nothing, transmit nothing, amplify nothing, dead architecture, deliberately dead. We were told this was modernization, progress, the natural evolution of urban design. The truth is simpler and colder. Every demolished ornate building is a destroyed node in the planetary grid. Every replaced dome is a silenced inductor. Every torn down viaduct is a severed transmission line. The 20th century didn't modernize our cities. It systematically stripped them of technological function and called the destruction quote, _13 either the most architecturally sophisticated buildings in human history spontaneously became obsolete and fire-prone in the same historical window across every continent, or someone executed a global cleanup operation to eliminate the evidence of what came before. There is no third option. This thought makes you cold. That's the correct response, because we're not talking about lost history anymore. We're talking about a theft so vast it reshaped the entire trajectory of human civilization and the full scale of what was stolen. That